You help people lead their most unreasonable and extraordinary life.
I'll start with manifestors. So they were the kings and queens and emperors of the past. Most manifestors now just kind of want to be left alone, and they get these urges and these impulses to bring new things into the world. Most of the conditioning for generators and mani-gens is like, just go do it. You push, you hustle, you make it happen. So projectors are really here to guide. Typically, we're kind of designed to be more seers rather than doers. We call reflectors our lunar type. They're here to be our judges and our evaluators on kind of a larger scale.
How do I take human design and apply it to my love life, my career, my family? So hi guys, welcome to another episode of Biohack-it. And today we have an amazing guest. We have Amy Lea all the way over from Australia. She's a human design and astrologist. Amy, I'm really excited to bring you on because human design kind of touched my life about 6 years ago, and it gave me so many insane insights into who I am, why I am the way I am. So when, I found your page on Instagram and the way you read for human design, I was so excited to bring you on, and you combine human design and astrology. So I want to start off by giving you like a space for an introduction and then going straight into it.
Hi, Iman. Thank you so much for having me. I found human design around the same time. It was 6-7 years ago for me. Yeah. And I guess for me, I had loved astrology my whole life. I was kind of a closet astrologist and had actually been studying astrology when I found human design. And it came into my world right as I was starting to give astrology readings. And similar to you, it felt really affirming. And it just felt like this kind of missing piece, and explains so much. Like, oh, this is why I've always felt so different. Or, and even with knowing my astrology, understanding my energy type and my authority was just life-changing for me. And so I pretty quickly, became passionate about it, integrated it into my work, and it's been a very big part of my life ever since.
And I want to start off by telling people human design is such a resourceful tool in your toolkit, whether it's finding love, whether it's making a career change, whether it is figuring out what your purpose is in life and what you're meant to do. It can really help answer and come to a lot of different paths if you utilize it correctly.
Absolutely. It's kind of all encompassing, and it can help you, understand really how to create your best life, right? And as you would know with your human design journey, a big part of it is deconditioning and decommissioning, releasing ourselves from all of the stories and the identities and all the ways we've been told we should live, right? This is what you should do. This is how you should feel. And so it really helps you kind of liberate the truth of who you are. And it applies to all areas of life. Like you said, parenting, relationships, work. I tend to work with people a lot in regards to purpose and sort of more life direction, like those sorts of realms, but touches everything, and it does just become this beautiful part of your everyday life when you start to really integrate it.
And I think a beautiful way that you explained it on your page, and I got this from your website, you help people lead their most unreasonable and extraordinary life.
Yeah, that's what I think human design helps us do.
Amazing, unapologetic, amazing, extraordinary, because we're all unique. So I wanted to kind of kickstart straight into it. So, human design obviously has 5 different energy types. So I want you to explain to our guests listening, obviously, the 5 different energy types and what each energy type is.
Sure. So energy type in human design, it's kind of like that first layer. It's normally that first thing that people find when they find the system, similar to what like your star sign is in astrology. It's kind of like that entry point. In human design, the energy types, we actually also call them aura types in human design, and they really describe how your energy field engages with the world around you, how you are designed to create opportunities, how you interact with others. And it's really just like the first layer of who you are. So we have 5 key types, but within that, each person's really, really unique. There are millions of combinations that make each manifesting generator completely different to another manifesting generator, but it's a really good starting point. So we have the 5 types. We have manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, who are kind of a bit of a hybrid. They're technically generators, but they function a little bit faster, and they move in a way that's slightly different to the generators. Then we have projectors and reflectors. And I'm a projector and you're a manifesting generator.
Yeah, I'm a manifesting generator. Yeah. And that's what blew my mind. I remember when I started reading a little bit more about manifesting generators and how things are meant to come from our gut. And we'll get into it a little bit more now. It just felt so right.
Yeah, because we're all conditioned, right, to make decisions from the mind. This is kind of like the whole point of human design is to help you uncover like really that kind of body consciousness that you have and to make decisions from that place. But we're all taught, society teaches us to be making decisions from our mind, to do what's logical, to do what's smart. And as you would know, that's not always what your gut is going to tell you as a manifesting generator. And sometimes it's the decisions that are really illogical and might not make sense in the grand scheme of things, that lead to the most magic and the best opportunities.
And so, for anybody listening, Amy, like if somebody is like, okay, what is the origin of human design? Where did it start and how did it come about? I wanted to also give a little bit of background to everybody listening about the backstory to how this modality came to be.
Sure. So the system, it's a very new system. So it was received in 1987 by a man named Ra Uru. He'd previously gone by the name Robert Krakauer. He was a Canadian. He was on the island of Ibiza. And it was an experience that he describes as being very unpleasant too, the experience of actually receiving the system. But he says the voice, right? He talks about this entity, the voice that kind of came to him. And over 8 days, he received this system cellularly and spent 8 days kind of just working and writing it all out. And it took him years, it took him quite a long time to then actually communicate it and build it out into the system it is now, because obviously that was a lot of information kind of like at once. And what human design does is it kind of is this beautiful blend of ancient teachings with more modern sciences. And so it draws on different elements from astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Tree of Life, the Judaic Tree of Life, and the Hindu Brahman chakra system. So it's kind of draws on small elements of those systems. It doesn't take everything. There's just certain pieces. And then it blends that with quantum mechanics and biology and astronomy as well. And gives you this like really beautiful map of like, okay, what's my kind of energetic blueprint in this life? But yeah, he describes the experience as being quite horrific. He thought his dog had died in the process. He didn't eat or drink. Yeah, and the dog didn't. The dog was alive at the end.
Oh
but,
my gosh.
he talks about like, please never let that happen to me again. Like, I'll do my job and I'll deliver this and I'll teach people, but please, I'm okay. That doesn't need to happen again. So quite a mystical, but when you think of all those other teachings, like we've had astrology, the chakra system, those systems are all thousands and thousands of years old. And then, so human design is this kind of new system that brings in a lot of the modern technology and sciences as well.
And then for people kind of listening, if they're like, okay, so what's a few of the core differences between astrology and human design? How would you explain those pieces?
Yeah, I love this question. Thank you, because I love to teach people how to use both together, because to me, I'm like, oh, they work so beautifully. Human design is very centered around you, your personal energetics, your personal operating system. How do you function, right? And it gives us this literal like map or blueprint of your energy field. Astrology, and human design, it gives us a lot of information that relates to like who you are, what are you here to do, how you can thrive, how you best function, how you can create opportunities, gifts and strengths that you're going to bring to whatever it is you do in the world. Astrology can show us that in a different way. It's almost like looking at you through a different lens, and from a different perspective. So we can get a really good understanding of also strengths, also challenges. Both systems can really show us where you're probably going to be challenged, where you might meet resistance in this life. But what astrology does, and this is why I love combining the two, is it also shows us more of your external world as well. So understanding someone's astrology, we can see like, well, what was childhood like? What's their Saturn return like? What are the areas of life where that's really crunchy? So your astrology can show us more of that world around you. We can see things to do with parents, family. We can see a lot to do with your relationship with money, other things. So it kind of just gives us this other perspective and then zooms out more to your external world. And then, astrology is also so great for understanding like seasons and cycles, through transits. We can, which human design, we can see that. But again, it's just like looking at it through a different lens and perspective.
And then I really want to explain to people what the 5 types are. So generators, manifestors, man-gens, projectors, and reflectors. So a little bit on each profile type.
Yes, so we have the 5 types. So I'll start with manifestors. So they were the kings and queens and emperors of the past, right? So up until 1781, in human design, they teach we went through an evolution in 1781, and that's actually when projectors came into existence. Projectors didn't exist before then. It was the other 4 types. And manifestors were kind of the emperors, the leaders, and they were initiating. And, the generators and the mani-gens were kind of building what the manifestors initiated. And we've gone through this shift now. Most manifestors now just kind of want to be left alone, so they're really here to be our pioneers and our creative forces. And I always say they have this beautiful connection to source and the universe, where it's like they have this direct line, and they get these urges and these impulses to bring new things into the world. And so they mostly want to just be left alone to do that role now. They're very autonomous. Usually they need a lot of freedom. And at their core, they're really designed to be peaceful beings. They do have a theme of anger, though. And what happens for them is usually when they meet resistance to those impulses and those urges, it brings up anger within them. And they're only about 8% of the world. And I think of manifestors, so they're a minority.
That's a really small minority. I had no idea.
Yeah, manifestors and reflectors are the two minorities. They want to be left alone. They're here to create their urges. I think of them as seasonal beings primarily, because they tend to have like seasons where they're really on and they want to do a lot and they're initiating and they've got the urges. And then they do really also need seasons to rest, and we call it their rest cycle. So they can look like they've got a lot to do, and then they dip back and they're not really doing anything, so they kind of move through the world a little bit differently how other people do.
Do you know what's so crazy? I'm obviously a manifesting generator, and we'll get into this later, but when you're speaking, I sound so much like a manifester. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, well, because you have similarities in that you do both have that initiating energy. Just as a mani-gen, we want it to come through the response first. So where manifestors, like each type has a strategy, and their strategy is really to listen to their authority and then to inform the people around them before they initiate an urge or an impulse. And the informing people around them is just to reduce resistance. Whereas for you as a mani-gen, it's wait for your response first. And for you as an emotional mani-gen, it's wait for your response and check if it still feels exciting after you've kind of slept on it and given it some time. Then you're into action, and and it's less important for mani-gens to inform. Like it's pretty imperative for a manifestor to inform, keep people around you in the loop, tell them what you're doing, because that's what reduces that resistance. And they tend to have, manifestors tend to have a little bit of conditioning that makes them feel like they have to keep things a secret too. If I tell people what I'm going to do, they're going to stop me, because that's usually how they're raised. Or, a lot of the conditioning for manifestors as children is that people try to control the manifestor child. So they learn to keep it a secret, and all of their deconditioning is around, no, don't keep it a secret. Tell people what you're doing and be really empowered in it. And that will actually reduce the resistance that you meet to your impulses and your urges.
That's so interesting to hear that as well, because I know some manifestors in my life. And when I think about it more and more, I can see these attributes being so true to those people, which is why I love human design so much, because it really kind of breaks down and gives you I feel like people are like onions, and it gives you another layer to that person.
Yeah, totally. And manifestors are ones you do tend to really feel when you're in their presence. They have this aura that is, we call it closed and repelling, but they have this really powerful throat center, so you tend to feel it when a manifestor enters the room. They're quite distinct the way that, their energy.
And then we obviously have the generators. So
Yes.
So I wanted to go into the generator type.
So the generators and manifesting generators, technically the same aura type, but we call them different energy types. And so all the aura types have the same strategy, which is, so for generators and mani-gens, it's wait to respond. And really, between the two types, you make up 70% of the world. So you are kind of the majority of the world are generators and mani-gens. And it's all, for you guys, it's all about learning to not initiate. Most of the conditioning for generators and mani-gens is like, just go do it. you push, you hustle, you make it happen. And, you know, what human design teaches is like, well, actually, it's helpful if you just wait, and life will bring you the correct opportunities, the correct people. And then you want to tune into your body and really let your body, let your sacral, let your gut show you, is this for me or not for me?
Right.
And your gut is responding for both types. It's responding to, do I have energy available to do this thing? That's really what it comes down to. And the main difference between the two is generators tend to be, you know, the people we come to who, I mean, there's nuance to this that I think we can see in your astrology as well, but typically generators, they're our people who are like dotting their I's, crossing their T's. They tend to work at a little bit more of a slower pace. They tend to be a little bit more sort of step by step, and they're really here to create mastery. Whereas Mani-Gens tend to be a little bit more multi-passionate. They're the people that oftentimes can handle multiple balls in the air, and they tend to move a little bit quicker. Yeah, and the quickness is what really helps us create efficiency in the world. So you guys can really help us see like, yeah, that step's not necessary. Let's skip that, right? We can do this faster. We can do this in a way that's more productive. But so a lot of similarities between the two, but then that's kind of the main distinct difference.
You know, it's so funny you said about like how you're meant to receive as a generator, as a manifesting generator, and things kind of come to you. So I almost have this image of it being like you have a massive magnet in your sacral, and it will pull all the opportunities. It will pull the people. It will pull towards you what is meant for you. And then at that time, you can decide, is this right for me for where I am in my life? Obviously, you all know I'm a biohacking fanatic and I absolutely love peptides. So you can only understand how excited I was when I discovered a skincare brand that works, that uses peptides. That is OneSkin. OneSkin uses the amazing OS1 peptide. OS1 works by actually switching off the senescent cells that drive the aging of your skin. Scientifically proven to give you biologically younger skin with long-lasting improvements in firmness, elasticity, reduction of fine lines and wrinkles, and a more youthful complexion. You can learn more about the OS1 peptide at oneskin.co and use my code Biohack-it for 15% off your purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to describe it to clients as to think of it as if you're playing a game of tennis with the universe. What you're doing is let the universe serve first, and then you decide it's a yes, I'm going to get in the game and I'm going to hit the ball back, or it's a no and I'm just going to step aside and let someone else come in and take that.
That's a really great way to see it.
When you guys are responding and doing what's correct, your energy is so lovely to be around too. Like for me as a projector, I love nothing more than being around a lit up, inspired, aligned generator or Mani-Gen, because it's so like you can feel it and your aura becomes so magnetic too when you're doing what's correct rather than doing what you think you should or what someone's telling you to do. Have you felt that difference, Iman, in like your energy where when you actually respond, there's just so like it feels like it gives you life, whereas if you're doing something because it's like, oh, I have to, it's a lower quality of energy?
Yeah, I think when I discovered Amy, human design, I couldn't say yes to things that don't resonate with me no matter what it is. And I always say this, the no's create the yeses. Like if you say no to some things, a yes will find you and you'll have more space to create moments in your life that you really want. But you need to make room for that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And I don't know anything much about, actually, it's weird, but I don't know much about projectors or reflectors. So I'm super excited to learn more about these two energy types.
Yeah, so projectors. So like I was saying, our newest type, the baby energy type, they're roughly 20 to 21% of the world. And so projectors have a very special relationship with generators and Mani-Gens. Our kind of role is that we're actually here to help generators and Mani-Gens create lives that feel satisfying for them, right? Because the more satisfaction you feel, the more it actually uplifts the energy of the planet. So projectors are really here to guide the generators and the Mani-Gens. Projectors, they say in human design aren't here to work in the traditional sense. Like typically we're kind of designed to be more seers rather than doers. And what happens is projectors, through the aura that projectors have, we have an aura that's focused and penetrative and absorbing. So we really work well in one-on-one interactions, and we have this aura that kind of locks on and can guide the future direction of whoever's in front of us. Whereas many gens and generators, sorry, I should have said this before, but their aura is open and enveloping, which is why it feels so delicious and good to be around. Whereas the projector aura can feel really abrasive at times and a little bit gnarly if we're trying to guide you and you haven't invited us, or you haven't welcomed us into your space, or you don't recognize us. So our strategy is to wait for the invitation as projectors, to not give unsolicited advice, even though we most of the time want to, and not try to guide people who haven't actually asked for our guidance. It's all about waiting for recognition, waiting to be seen, and then guiding the people who we feel that.
That's a really interesting. So it's a lot about like waiting to be seen, making sure that you have the request to go in and give the advice. So it's it's a big patience game, I guess, being a projector.
It is. And it's certainly not passive though, that like as a projector, when we're waiting for invitations, when we're waiting to guide, like that only applies to certain experiences. Like there's really, they talk about four invitations that really apply, which is to bond, to work, to love, and to move. So really it's more like if we're wanting to guide, like if you're a coach and you're wanting to guide people as clients, like you kind of want to wait. You want to wait for them to see you. But what projectors can do is make sure they're putting themselves out in the world, so that people can find them and recognize them and give them invitations. So I actually think social media is really great for projectors because it gives you this platform to be like, yeah, I'm going to share who I am with the world, and the right people can find me and see me and then invite me in. Like, I don't know what projectors actually did before social media.
And where does it in all of this leave the reflectors? Like, who are they? What is their role? What are they meant to do?
So they're our beautiful unicorns. So they're only 1% of the world, which 1%, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is like 1 in 100, so there is still like millions of reflectors in the world, but you're definitely less likely to encounter them because they are much rarer. They are completely open in their design. So they act as sort of cosmic mirrors for the world. So we call reflectors our lunar type, and all of the other types that I've mentioned are solar types. And if you think of that in relationship to like the relationship that the sun has to the moon, the moon really operates in a way where it's reflecting the light of the sun. And that's so much about what reflectors do in the world. They mirror back, and they're here to be our judges and our evaluators on kind of a larger scale, on like a community scale, a macro scale. They tend to be more objective observers, kind of sitting back, watching, noticing what's happening. But they're so great. I'm actually so lucky. I have 2 close girlfriends who are reflectors, and they're my people when things are happening in the world, like something's going on or I observe something. They're the people I go to. I'm like, what do you feel about this? Like what, if you know a reflector, ask them some open-ended questions about what they're observing and noticing in the world. And it's so amazing, the reply and the wisdom that you will get from them. And for them, environment is everything though. They really need to prioritize being in spaces that feel healthy, stimulating, and inspiring for them, because what that means is the people around them are correct in the environment, because they're always kind of reflecting back who's in the environment.
They almost sound like old souls. When you're describing reflectors, they sound like old souls.
Yeah, they are. And they are, reflectors and manifestors are the types that are most impacted by the transits too. So they're the most sensitive to like what's actually going on with the planets in the moment. So they do have a lot of, I think reflectors do have so much wisdom because they sample energy, so especially when you're meeting a reflector who's past their Saturn return, they're kind of coming into their 30s or older. It's like they've sampled a lot, they've sampled a lot, they felt a lot, experienced a lot. So there's so much wisdom that we can get from them.
And then I know all the women listening to this, or just people listening to this in general, are going to want to know, how do I take human design and apply it to my love life? If I'm single or looking for love, or if I am in a loving relationship, how do I apply it to my career and the thought of like maybe finding purpose? And the 3, it most likely will be, how do I apply it to my family?
Yeah, so the best place to start would be strategy and authority, because that's going to help you even in your dating life and love life. If you're single, even if you're in a partnership, like that will really help you discern the decisions that you're making, right? And especially if you're single, like how to know if someone's right for you or not, how to know like if you want to go on a date with someone or not. Strategy and authority can be really helpful in that way. When you're in partnership and if you're wanting to understand your family better, there are certain pieces of design that are really helpful to understand, again, what would that relationship dynamic be. Profile is a really, really good place to start with that. Profile is the two numbers that we have. So Iman, you're a 2-5, I'm a 5-1. Understanding that can be really helpful in relationships, because there's what we call resonance and harmony with certain profiles, and you can kind of get to see, like if you can learn about the 6 numbers that make up profile, you get a really good sense into who someone is. And then certain numbers resonate with each other. So 1s and 4s harmonize, 2s and 5s harmonize, and then 3s and 6s. So like for me and you, Iman, like me as a 5-1, that 5 part of me really harmonizes with you with the 2 and the 5. So we kind of can be like on the same page in a way. We can kind of get each other through that energy. So that's a really good place to start. But then also diving into your centers, your energy centers, is really helpful in relationship to understand like, where am I open and I'm taking in and I'm kind of influenced by the energy of the people around me, you know, especially noticing if there's places where like you might be open and then your partner or your child is colored in and defined, you know, where they're colored in, it could potentially be putting you under pressure. Where you're colored in and they're white, you can be putting them under pressure, you know, and so that awareness can really help, especially with kids, you know, so that you can be mindful of that and the behaviors of them. You know, Ra, the founder of Human Design, he always said it's for the children, and it is so impactful for kids to be raised by parents who have that understanding.
And do you, Amy, have a lot of people who come to you and, you know, bring like do a family, you know, in astrology, you do a whole like family astrology and stuff. Do you have people come to you and say, hey, like I want to do my family's human design, help me with my kids, help me with my partner?
Yes, and it's one of my favorite things to do. And I mean, with kids, it's quite simple. You know, what we want to do with kids is just not condition them, you know, because they kind of come into the world and they are living, like they are liberated in their true selves. And what normally happens is the people around them unconsciously condition them to be something other than they're not. So with them, it's more about like understanding who they really are and then not putting that pressure or that conditioning on them to be anything else. And yeah, and with kids too, like there's so much in human design that goes into nourishment as well. And that can be, that really is the most important piece for kids. You know, if you understand their energy type, their authority, nourishment, and then in their astrology, I love to weave in their moon sign, because usually kids are more like their moon sign, and then we kind of grow into the sun sign as we get older. But yeah, it's really interesting for families.
And then the amazing part is, so if somebody's, obviously there's a website and we'll give it to you guys that people can go and check out and create their human design profile, right? They can just go online, do that. What website do you recommend?
So there's so many now.
Yeah,
I
I
actually
know.
have, yeah, they're popping up everywhere. And a lot of people in human design have their own, which is so great, you know,
Own
and you
system,
can,
yeah.
so I have software where you can look that up on my website. We've also just implemented what's called the Rave Mandala view. So you can actually flip the view and see where are all my planets in the zodiac signs as well. So you can kind of, with
Oh,
our
wow.
software, see like, okay, my child's moon is in Pisces or it's in Aries, and get that sort of second layer of information. So we have myconstellation.com.au. Other great ones though, you know, Jovian Archive, My Body Graph, Genetic Matrix, like they're all good. I usually recommend to people like go to a platform, have a play with it and see which one feels really good
Right for you.
Yeah.
And I think something really helpful for people would be is like, I wanted to use my human design, my astrology as an example, and kind of pop it up and be like, just reading mine so they can understand what does it mean from the profile, what does it mean to apply your strategy, all of that stuff. So when they're actually reading, because sometimes you get the reading, you're like, what is all this? So I think walking people through it would be really helpful so they can actually understand how to read their own.
Yeah, so definitely, like I was saying, start with energy type. So you're a manifesting generator, Iman. I actually have your chart here in front of me. I have
Amazing.
your astrology up too. You're actually an
Excited.
interesting money gen because you have a lot of fixed energy in your astrology, So anyway, maybe we'll come back to that. But yeah, energy type, looking at your authority, so for Iman, she is an emotional authority, which we haven't talked about these yet, but your authority is really your decision making superpower, and again, how you can understand. So, like, what's correct for you and what's not. So, for Iman, as a manifesting generator, you have that beautiful, delicious sacral response. And then we layer that kind of with your emotional solar plexus, which is really your emotional solar plexus is like the captain of your ship, right? Out of the centers, it's like your guiding light. And so for you, everything is about responding, but then, like I said at the beginning, taking time, feeling into it, not rushing into decisions, not making impulsive decisions. Like, you're really here to be someone who's a considered and deliberate decision maker. The solar plexus is such a beautiful center, but I want to say, for anyone who's listening who reads that in their chart, like, the world isn't really designed for emotional beings. Like, the world kind of, you live on emotional time, which is not mentally controlled, right? And emotional people with emotional authority, you have the capacity to access the most depth and perception and awareness, right? But it's all about taking your time. They use a really beautiful analogy in human design to kind of paint, I guess, the picture of like how it works for emotional beings. Ra uses an example of someone who has emotional authority with someone who has splenic authority. And so I have splenic authority. So it could be me and you, Iman, like in the story.
Yeah.
He talks about, like, if you imagine there are two photographers and they have this assignment to get a photograph of a flower, right? And you and I, we both go out, we've got the assignment. Me as the splenic authority, I kind of walk in, it's 9 a.m. I walk in, I take 10 photos and I've got it. And I know straight away. It's like very instinctive, right? And then I'm off down the road having lunch and having a drink and relaxing or whatever. You're there as the emotional being probably all day. And at the end of the day, you've taken thousands of photos, right? And we'll still get the same result. We'll still both just pick one photo, one picture that we submit, but you've got thousands of photos. And what you've also got as an emotional being, because you've been through that process, you have the way more awareness of the flower, right? You've been there all day. You've been observing how the light hits different petals and leaves. You've been observing the quality of the soil. You've been observing the bugs. So like, we come away with the same result, but you've got all this extra depth and perception and awareness that I don't. So it's such a beautiful authority to have, that there's a lot of deconditioning for emotional beings, like learning to wait. Usually you've been conditioned to think, well, just, if you feel excited, just go for it, just do it. You should trust your gut, you should know straight away. And so much of your deconditioning is like, well, no, you can't actually trust that initial feeling. There's no truth in the now. And you do just want to take your time.
We wouldn't have a podcast talking about optimizing women's health without talking about Body Bio. I use Body Bio every single day, and their hero product is a necessity for everyone in my house. PC is a pure liposomal phospholipid complex that helps protect the 70 trillion cells in our body from aging, environmental stressors, and toxin exposure. This little guy is great for everyone: you, your husband, your kids, and even your pets. Our health truly starts with ourselves, and PC gives them the support and maintenance they need. To learn more about Body Bio, head over to their website, www.bodybio.com, and use the code Biohack-it for 20% off your first order. And if you've already purchased Body Bio and want to rebuy, use Iman at checkout for 15% off all your orders. That's amazing, kind of breaking it down. So one of the things I'm going to share is, when I got into human design, I was somebody who was told that, hey, like, you have to follow a certain career, go up the corporate ladder, do things step by step. And I was somebody who would see a path, and if that path didn't serve me, I would take a really quick, like, sharp turn and be like, okay, let me go try something else, and be really excited about it and be able to create projects and opportunities and ideas very, very quickly. And, people would look at me and be like, this sounds a little like crazy what you're doing. And so when I discovered human design and I realized that is my profile type, that is how I embody energy, it was really refreshing for me, because for a minute I thought, like, am I the crazy one? Am I just off to a new idea and creating things out of like thin air and they seem right to me? If it doesn't, it stops working. I'm like, okay, how do I pivot this really quickly to make something else work? So that trust in myself was really affirmed when I discovered human design. I was able to really understand and study my profile, and it really also helped me with my love life, with work, with relationships, situations, to understand that I'm meant to receive. And when it comes to me, then I have a choice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I feel like that's a really important part of your human design process, is having that kind of evidence of, well, no, I have actually seen that this does work for me in this way. And that's the other beautiful gift of Mani Gens, right? That ability to pivot, which I didn't mention before, but usually when you can sense, it's like, this isn't right. This isn't how we should do it. This isn't working. Like, it's a really beautiful gift of Mani Gens to kind of be like, let's push it aside and let's go over here. This is the new direction. And it can happen quite fast, like you were talking about.
And if I had to incorporate in, like, let's say, the astrology portion, and you do it so beautifully on your website with this profiling of human design, does that create, like, does it look like there's synergies between the two, or sometimes do people get completely different readings?
There's usually a mixture. And even in your human design chart, we can see there are things, especially when you get into a lot of the deeper layers, there's always going to be things that feel a little bit contradictory or a little bit conflicting. There's lots of things that feel affirming. And the way it works is that even though something might seem a little bit contradictory, when you are living as your true self, it all actually just harmonizes in this beautiful kind of quantum soup of who you are, and it does all just kind of work together. But I find astrology, to me, it's like it adds just more nuance to my understanding of a person. So like I was saying before, like, you have a lot of fixed energy in your astrology, but
And
you're
what
a
does that
Mani Gen.
mean? Yeah.
So
So what does fixed energy mean for everybody listening that, like, I don't know what this means at all?
yeah, so in astrology, we like to classify the zodiac signs. They can be one of three modalities, and then we also classify them into elements. And so
Okay.
we can have zodiac signs that are cardinal, which cardinal energy is very, like, I call it gumption. It's like the get up and go. It's very initiatory energy. So someone who's, say, a generator with a lot of cardinal energy, oftentimes I find they think they should be Mani Gens because they feel like, but I want to start all the things, right? So it just adds a little bit more nuance. Fixed signs tend to have a lot of endurance and a lot of grit and a lot of determination, and they can have, so even though you're a Mani Gen and
Yes.
you know, yeah,
That's
especially
a
because
yes.
you're a
That's total
Taurus.
yes for me. That sounds like yes, yes, yes on my box.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you're a Taurus sun with a Leo moon. I was like, oh my goodness, that is so powerful, that combination. And then you're a Virgo rising too. Uh, but yeah, so and fixed signs usually, like, they can be a little bit stubborn too, because they know what they want,
Yeah.
right? They know what they want and they're going to make it happen. So that's really lovely. So that's where I feel for you, like, even though you're a Mani Gen, and we could definitely see, like, the pivoting and the efficiencies and all of that. Also, I feel like you probably would have a lot of staying power and be someone who's very interested in creating longevity in what you do as well. And someone who's very interested in, like, both of those signs are very interested in the material and the material world,
Mm-hmm.
quality over quantity, doing things really well, and value being really important with those signs as well. So yeah, it adds a bit of nuance. But then we have mutable signs as well. And so the mutable signs are more about closure, completion, changeability. They usually have a lot of wisdom, the mutable signs. So that just adds another kind of layer. And then we have the elements. So we have earth, fire, water, and air, which, again, if someone has even just a dominance in one of those elements, we can get a really good understanding of, you're a Mani Gen or you're a manifestor and you're going to be initiating things and you have all of this earth energy. So it's probably going to be that you want to initiate things that relate to commerce, business, which all the earth signs are very connected to the material, physical resources. How do we make actual change in the world? Whereas a manifestor who has a lot of water energy, they're going to be more likely to be initiating things that are to do with healing and intuition and spirituality or imagination or human behavior, things like that, psychology. So it just adds all this whole other world of kind of information. But I love that you're a Taurus. I have no Taurus energy in my chart. And so none, and none in my design chart either as well. So that's just your personality chart in human design. We have a design chart as well, which has all of the same planetary placements. It's a whole other layer as well. So anyway, it just adds a lot more nuance to the picture.
And then looking at my chart, if you look at my astrology and my human design, what are some of the things coming up for 2024? Is it like, can you do that with both of them, combining them, looking at the year, certain themes, or, you know?
Yeah, you definitely can. I think for you, what's interesting, I think I've got your astrology up in my actual software so I can see where the transits are for you. I don't have your human design. I've got sort of the sheet that you guys sent me. But we can see it in both. It's always really great to get a reading, like a transit reading, in the 3 months before your birthday each year, and then kind of do like a look ahead. And with both systems, we can really see like what's going to happen in your year. In astrology, we can get more of an idea again of those areas of life that are going to be really activated. In your human design, it's actually really interesting year ahead readings. We can see a lot of what your not self challenges might be. We can kind of see like, where's the universe going to test you? Yeah, and where might you be really called to decondition? And we can also get a really good idea of the people that might come into your world through your human design. Like you might meet someone who's very mercurial, who's kind of teaching you about struggle, or they're teaching you about endurance and determination, or you might meet someone who's very Venusian, who's teaching you about direction. Like it's actually goes quite deep in the human design chart. But for you, so I haven't looked at your transits in advance, so I'm kind of just riffing on like what's jumping out for me. We have a really big collective transit happening in April that's, I don't know, I feel like April could be a little bit chaotic with everything that's going on, but this transit speaks of like change, disruption, liberation. And for you, it's actually happening very close to your sun. So this could be some kind of like unexpected opportunity, you know, and you're a sun in the 9th house too. So much about your life's essence wants to be expressed in the realms of teaching, sharing, like broadening people's horizons, opening people up to possibilities, even being really connected to beliefs and ideals. So it makes sense that you're interested in things like astrology and human design and personal development and improvement, right?
Do you know what's really amazing is like hearing you speak and stuff right now? One of the things I don't think people know about is, and then you can touch upon this, is that you can also apply human design to your company. Somebody once told me, and you can do a human design chart for your company and then back it into your astrology and your human design and see how it all comes together, because businesses also carry their own energy.
They do. I tend to, with a business, so with human design, there's kind of 2 charts that are calculated. So there's, we call the personality and then the design. With a business, I tend to just look at the personality placements, because the design placement is what infuses your physical body, and a business doesn't have the same physical vessel like a human does or an animal does, because you can look up your pets too. Like my dog's a reflector. You can you need to go to Genetic Matrix, or the platform that has the capability.
Writing this down. I have 4 dogs.
Oh,
it's amazing. Can you do cats as well?
Yeah, you
All
can.
Animals?
You can. And it's so funny to watch the dogs. Like my little dog, she's a reflector, and sometimes I'm like, you are so not self, Marnie. If we go out and there's other dogs, she's the dog, I'm like, undefined sacral, doesn't know when enough's enough, is running around like a lunatic, and is just amplifying all of that generator energy from all the generator dogs. And the generator dogs, they'll know when they're tired, and so they'll just stop and rest. And she's just like, doesn't know when enough's enough. And then we come home and she sleeps for 6 hours. I'm like, could you just pace yourself? You know, like, you just chill.
By the way, but how would you do it for pets if you don't know their exact birth time? Like 3 of my 4 dogs are adopted.
Yeah, so that could be tricky. You do need to ideally know their birthday at least. And then
birthday, okay.
Yeah, and you could check their chart throughout the day and just see if it changes at all. And then you'll probably, to be honest, through observing them, what you mostly want to just pay attention to is the energy type that they are. You'll probably start to, through observing them, get to see like, okay, who might be the undefined sacrals, who are the reflectors that are amplifying all that. You know, they're usually the ones that are, again, like my dog, running around like lunatics, amplifying everyone's energy, and then will sleep. But versus who are the generators, right? Who might have more of a sustainable relationship to energy. But check it and just see if it changes throughout the day. I would check like 3 a.m., 12 p.m., 9 p.m. or something.
That's absolutely amazing. And then, Amy, I wanted to ask you, like, when, you know, for everybody kind of like, you know, we spoke about so many different things kind of coming towards the end of the episode. I wanted to talk about, you know, what is some of the advice you would have? What are some of the learnings you've had in your experience doing this beautiful work that have stuck with you, that have really carried you through to where you are today?
Yeah, thank you. That's such a good question. One of the biggest things I think for me has been, you know, learning how much of this isn't a mental process. You know, there's so much information, especially when you come to human design. There's so much information in the system, and it's really easy to kind of get caught in this kind of logical place and trying to mentally live your design, you know, like thinking like, oh, well, I have this gift, I have this gate. I'm kind of going to mentally try to bring this to the forefront or engineer or manipulate ways that I can do this. And the actual purpose of human design is for your unconsciousness to kind of come to the forefront and for that to just emerge organically from you. And so focusing more on just integration, embodiment, real life experience, and really approaching it as an experiment too, I think is important. Like knowing you're not perfect, knowing that you're going to do not self things. Your not self themes will continue to come up for your whole life, you know, not shaming yourself or making yourself feel bad if you repeat those kinds of patterns. It's all just part of the experience, but approaching it kind of from a light, playful kind of place and looking at it as like, this is an experiment. And even I suggest to people usually, like if you're just starting out, like do experiment with doing the opposite of what your strategy is, right? I think get that evidence and have that real life experience. And for me, like I did that so many times in the beginning, particularly with family, you know, as a projector, my strategy is to wait for invitation. And when because at first, you know, that strategy can feel really passive, right? And I had a few experiences with, particularly I have 3 younger brothers, where I was like, screw it, I'm not waiting. I'm going to tell you what I think. And kind of cultivated that evidence of like, yeah, they didn't hear me. Yeah, they're not listening. Yeah, that was a waste of energy. Yeah. Now I feel really bitter. And, you know, 2 weeks later, someone tells them the exact same thing I told them. And they're like, that's amazing. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you. I'm like, I told you that. I told you that. But they literally couldn't hear me, you know, and that's, so yeah, do those things. Like do the opposite. Keep data, gather evidence for yourself, and yeah, let it be a fun experiment as much as possible.
I'm just so excited I got to speak to you because I think you have a very unique way from a lot of people out there of how you practice human design with astrology and the way you break it down and you simplify it. And, you know, the way you read people's charts and you read their profiles for them is just so accessible and nice that it doesn't go over the top of your head because, yeah, human design is a lot of information at once.
It is. It's very data rich. And sometimes you don't need to go that. Not everyone needs to go that deep too. It can actually kind of distract you.
And I'm excited for people to discover you. And really, human design is such a great resource and a tool to add into your toolkit just to navigate life, relationships, love, career, purpose. And I really think it can help people discover a lot of unanswered questions because the more you get to know yourself, the more you're able to operate from a place of confidence. And when you do that, you attract different things into your life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Iman.
So thank you so much, Amy. I'm so excited about people discovering you and discovering how you read and, you know, the uniqueness you have to your approach. So thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
Thank you.